All right. What's up, people? How's it going? I think my microphone should be good. Let me know if the audio or the music is a little bit too soft, too loud, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's been a while since I've actually streamed just by myself. I've been on a couple streams before, but I figured I was setting. So the reason I wanted to stream today was because yesterday I had figured out how to do like multi streaming across different platforms, and so I had set up, just to have it do to different platforms. I had set up YouTube and Twitch, and because previously I had only streamed on YouTube, I guess, for like the Laravel documentation reading. I had streamed on Twitter for that too, and I had everything working. And then today it just like it showed that it was connected and live on Twitter, but there was no video. At least in my tests, maybe there was actually video, and I just ended it for no reason. But yeah, I like YouTube better anyways, and like I'm on YouTube more. It is crazy though how much Twitter pushes. If you're live, like everyone gets a notification for it. But I don't really care about that. I just want to be live on as many platforms as possible. So I'll figure that out later. But yeah, thanks so much for everyone joining already on YouTube. That's like where the party's at. Yeah, so maybe I'll just stream on YouTube. Maybe I'll give up my delete my Twitch account, and you can only find me on YouTube. So if YouTube, you're looking for any kind of sponsorship, I should say, I am willing to take. I'm willing to forego Twitch sponsorship and stream solely on YouTube. But yeah, let's get into it. So the premise for this, let me switch this over here. So hey everyone on YouTube, and then hey no one on Twitch right now. I plan to do the same when getting to regular streaming, just YouTube. Yeah, I don't have I have like overlays. I might not have them like set up right now, but I have overlays on chat. So if you're chatting on Twitch, I have like the overlays, but I'll probably like just switch that so like it's just YouTube that has overlaid chat like on here. Don't worry, Josh, I'm representing there we go, Nick. I appreciate it. And look at that, first time chat. See, it pops up for Twitch like underneath my chin, because that's why I had set up previously before I switched primarily to YouTube. So I'll turn that off. Maybe I'll turn it off right now. Either I'll turn that off completely, or maybe just do it for YouTube and Twitch. Yeah, YouTube is where it's at. We're not writing JS over here. Hey on Twitch, hey Gummy Beer. But yeah, I don't know if I'll keep doing like both. I know it's nice to have it on everything just in case. But yeah, I'll have to decide what I want to do with like actual overlays, stuff like that. But yeah, long story short, I saw a bunch of people, well, ever since a lot of the Twitch, and yeah, let me know if the kick stream went. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going too far over that way. YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. That will be. I'm not even streaming on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is like a little bit too professional for me. Aaron Francis streams on LinkedIn, and good for him. But yeah, when the Twitch awards, with a lot of like game development stuff going on and stuff like that, I was like, okay. For the longest time, I've wanted to make a like turn-based multiplayer strategy game. So I think I had this idea when I was like 7. And I was like, okay, chess is cool, but like imagine there's been multiple games like this. Chess is cool, but imagine like chess with like abilities and hit points and stuff like that. So I figured, what better way to learn a bunch of different weird things within game development than trying to build it in Laravel? And I admit, I'm the Laravel streamer working at Laravel, so LinkedIn is too professional. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a little, hey, PHP Annotated. Nice to have you here. Hey, Jesse. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's too, it's still weird combining because there's a lot of like people who know me personally on LinkedIn. And a lot of them don't know what I do. Like they're like, oh yeah, you just like work on computers, right? And so it's always been weird of this kind of combining those two worlds. But maybe I should do it. Maybe I should do a little bit more. But yeah, so a turn-based strategy game. Let me pull up some like notes here. So I was like, I want to do a turn-based strategy game. Think like chess with characters, abilities, and hit points. And the reason why I want to stream this is one, because there's going to be so much stuff that I don't know how to build. This isn't going to be like a one-time stream. We might like, I have about an hour and a half, which means we might be able to like, get Laravel installed. And it takes a little quicker than that. But I think the point, the reason why I want to build a game is one, it's always been on my mind. Two, it's great to use technologies that you actually know to learn new things within those technologies. So the stuff that the stuff that I want to learn is, this is going to be like a trigger word for people who are watching on YouTube or too bad it's not on Twitter, because I feel like people would love this word. But I think I can learn event sourcing from building a game. So for those who don't know, there is Verbs, a Laravel package, and I think there's actually a board game example. So I don't know anything about event sourcing. I know that Daniel has been trying to get me to figure it out, and Josh Hansen is trying to get me to figure it out as well. But I really just don't know how it works. My guess is, here's what my thought of that. Here's my thought of what event sourcing is you have the ability to figure out where you've been so that you know where you're going. That's my thought. I wish you could stay and watch this, Josh. You gotta go do household chores, catch up with the VOD. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get too far into it, but it'll be nice to see you catch up in the VOD, so I appreciate that. Almost 11:50 p.m. there. Wow, in India. Sick indoor hat, by the way. Yeah, I wear hats all the time. Yeah, I stayed up pretty late last night myself, so I appreciate you hanging in there, Chandan. Gummy Bear, in case you want to mingle, I would be available for second, third stream, working on a game as well, and I've built several games already during game. Perfect. I'd be down for that. Yeah, there's stuff that, like, I know the reason why I want to do this in Laravel. One is obviously, like, that's most of my community and most of the people who are watching, probably, who are just interested in Laravel, whether you build in Laravel or not. Two, when you are familiar with a software like Laravel, or just like any software development in general, you automatically know how you would think through building a game or building whatever solution that you're trying to solve. And that's why I want to stick with Laravel. I know one thing I've always wanted to try. You're also building Laravel. There you go. You're building a game in Laravel, Gummy? I don't know if I should call you Gummy Beer or just Gummy. I'll just call you Gummy. Are you building a game in Laravel? I've always been interested in Love 2D. This is if, like, Lua seems really, I've never built in Lua, but Lua seems really interesting. And I would build in Lua if I wasn't building in Laravel. Like, the reason why I want to build this in Laravel is I know how I would approach this, and so I think I can build it faster. But also, there's going to be so much stuff I'll learn, and which really excites me. So I've always been excited about things to learn. So when it comes to like event sourcing, or how to think through multiplayer lobbies and stuff like that. So everyone always says, hey, the first game you should build should not be a multiplayer game. Well, too bad. I'm gonna do it anyways. Lewis kind of shit, if you know modern PHP. There you go. See, I'm ready. You can also call me Tom. Hey, Tom. Do I follow you on Twitter, or do you follow me on Twitter, Gummy? Like, is that how I might know you? It's always weird combining those two worlds, kind of thing. Neovim, by the way. I know, but I don't use Neovim, so sorry, Jesse. You would convince me of split keyboards for stream ban. You would convince me of streamboards. You would convince me of split keyboards before Neovim, just because I'm really interested in split keyboards, but I also know that that's going to take a while for me to get used to. So yeah, we're going to learn event sourcing. I already know quite a bit about Laravel Reverb, just because I've made one video on it on the Laravel channel, and then I have a Laracast course coming out that uses Reverb pretty heavily, in the sense that you have kind of like these live listening rooms for podcasts. And so that's what I would build with this game. And some other stuff I'll probably learn is a lot of like just fun JS, maybe like, what's it called? Like Canvas type stuff. And that's not even JS, like HTML Canvas stuff. I feel like I would learn a bunch of that, because I don't necessarily need it to be really flashy graphics wise. I'm okay with it looking just like a regular, like a flat 2D board, but this could be like something where I could bump it up. So again, those tuning in first time, I have not even written a single line of code. This is me dreaming, because I've always wanted to make a game, and now I'm like, why wouldn't I just build it in Laravel? I know enough about it where I know how to do this. So turn-based strategy game. It's basically chess with characters, abilities, hit points. I think I could use Caleb Porzio's Sushi to basically set all of like the characters. Also, one of the reasons why I've always wanted to build a game is I love like the what's it called? I love the like stats aspect of building a game. So when I was playing a lot of like League of Legends, or when I was playing, I played this. This is basically what I'm going to base it off. I don't know if it's even still like available to see, but there was this game that I played in middle school called Tactics Arena Online. Yeah, it looks like it's still, there's still like some stuff available. But it was basically like this turn-based strategy game with like hit points and like different characters. So I guess I'm just trying to replicate the feel of what it felt like when I was in middle school playing this game. There was some randomness aspect to it, which I think I would have to introduce and stuff like that. But there was a lot of like strategy to it as well. So it was basically like, you know, like an action chess game. And so that's the kind of like feeling that I want to try to replicate when I am building this again, is one, just getting the ability to think through, okay, like what makes a game balanced, what makes a game fun, but then also like how do you still have an aspect of strategy without it being without there being that balance of overpowered and underpowered like players and strategies and stuff like that. Gonna use coworker's got you a play date for your birthday. I've always wanted to use a play date. Play date uses Lua. That's interesting. I love using Alpine.js. That's actually what in the Laracast course that I made, that's going to be probably releasing soon, I would imagine. That's what I used a lot of. It was basically just Alpine.js straight through. SVG instead of Canvas. Okay, geometric's way easier to see. That makes sense. Okay, so see, there's stuff like that I'll be able to learn. So we'll probably use like Sushi to hold like the characters, abilities, hit points, that kind of thing. So that way it's easier accessible, and because we don't necessarily need this to be fast, if that makes sense. Like this turn-based strategy game, there's probably going to be, you know, a specific time limit for each turn. Maybe like, I don't know, 60 seconds or something like that. So this doesn't need to be a real-time game in that sense. Like, technically, we don't even need to use reverb. We probably do, just for this time limit. But like, we could start it off and not even have a time limit, and just say like, you join this room, and now it is your turn to make your move, and so it's kind of like this. It can be done in real time, or it can't be, and we can use, you know, polling for that as well. But this is going to be still important, because if we wanted it to be any sense of real-time strategy game, even if it's turn-based, you still need that multiplayer aspect to it. Or if you wanted to like have chat or something like in there. Yeah. So I guess I'm just trying to replicate that game that I played a lot of, Tactics Arena Online. Because that was probably like the first multiplayer game I played, other than maybe like Battlefield 2, I think, back in the day. Do you work for, get paid by Laravel? I do work for Laravel now. So I am officially a kind of like a support engineer for Laravel, as well as kind of half and half. So I do like some support engineering stuff, mostly helping out with the Laravel Vapor product, which is something that I've used for a long time and still love. And then I also do a lot of videos for Laravel. So on the Laravel official channel, you'll see some of my videos. Usually I try to do 1 or 2 a week, as well as my own personal channel that I do on the side. Yeah, you need reverb to ping the opponent that their round starts. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably like a good reason to as well. You could probably use like the database and like Livewire events to do it too. But yeah, you still, like, if they're in the same room, it's helpful to do it instead of having 5-second polling and stuff like that. Real-time match between 2 players. Exactly. That is what the goal is, to be able to have this. Again, this is probably the wrong way of trying to accomplish building your first game, is basically making something that is already incredibly difficult. Like if you were to say, let's build chess as a first game, most people would say, hey, that's probably not a good idea. Like, build tic-tac-toe first. But I've never done anything the easy way, so we're going to build a multiplayer chess with specific hit points, stuff like that. Okay, what else would we need? So we'll probably handle this just in like flat file, and then we obviously need like multiplayer ability. So like there should be different accounts. So there's accounts for each game. Yeah. See, in my head, this doesn't seem like that hard of something to accomplish, you know? So why don't we, I'll go ahead and flip to this view right here. Why don't we start doing it? So let's see. Open this up. Okay. Your approach is a good discovery exercise. Thank you. Yes, that is the goal. There's so much that I think we can learn from building a game, and anyone who has built a game, like I know Gummy you have, or you're building a game, and there's probably a bunch of different people who have either built a game, whether it's small or big or anything like that. You learn so much stuff of all this stuff, and it's going to be applicable not to games as well. So just like thinking through. So we'll start. I don't even know what I would want to call it, but it's going to be like a chess action game strategy. So we'll just call it something extremely generic, and we'll just say Strategico. There we go. I'm going to use Laravel Breeze with class API, and mostly that's just so we can get like accounts. So the first thing I usually like to do when I'm building anything new, again, first time game, but I already know in my head of like how I think this should like start off. And it's because, you know, it's very similar to applications in a lot of ways. Yeah, you learn so much by building. It's obvious, but still a bit mind-blowing. Yeah, exactly. You learn so much by just doing things over and over. I've built like a couple real-world applications and products that are in the wild right now. But at the same time, the stuff that I've learned the most, and obviously I learned a lot from like building them from start to finish. But even the very simple stuff that I've done for videos or for, you know, demos and stuff like that, I've always learned so much too, because there's different like tasks and stuff that you come across where you're like, hey, how do I now have in a event room, like how do I have multiple people able to be in an event room, but only the people who are registered to that game be in an event room, for example. Like there's gonna be so much stuff, and that can be applied to different applications too. So Strategico, it's actually a pretty cool name. I'm not gonna stick with it probably, but like I honestly think that like making a game is so much more fun than building an application, but I know that it's because it's hard to. So yeah, let's go ahead, open this in VS Code, and I'm gonna pull open the chat over here just so I can like read still while I'm building. But the first thing I want to do, let's go ahead and open this in a web browser, and we'll pull that open here. Okay, so I'm not even gonna like worry about, I'm not even going to worry about like styling yet. I just want to have the ability to have basically like set up all the structure for it. So like the models of, okay, you need a game should have like its own game room and stuff like that. So like how thinking through the different models. There we go. Okay. So we can start building it in the dashboard itself. With games, you get a whole different, Gummy says, and Twitch. With games, you get a whole different relation with the container and events. Yeah, that's a good point of thinking. And it's really similar. Again, I'll talk about this just because this is what kind of reinvigorated it. But I was building what we're going to be building in the latest Lyricast course that I created. Is basically a real-time podcast listening app. So in the sense that there's a specific start time for when that podcast starts, and then you can join that room and listen to the podcast together. So imagine like live streaming a podcast, but it's only like a one-time thing. And there was a lot that I learned from building that I think can be applicable to building this game, in the sense that, you know, it's, you don't have a game that usually like within like a multiplayer game, there's a start time and an end time. Like that's it. And you have to have this synced on the server and like all this fancy stuff. And that's what we're going to like think through in the game. So like I learned a lot just from building that real-time podcast listening app. And so I think I can apply it to the game as well. So, let's see. So we have accounts, turn-based strategy game. So let's look at, why don't we say, let's see, like some models. So first we need games. So a game would probably have like, it has like two accounts. So like 2 users within the game. It has like a set start time. Games probably also have like their own, there's multiple turns per game, and each turn has its own turn time, and the turn is also associated with the user. And Yeah, turns, turn time, turn associated with the user, and a turn has like an event, and that's probably like a terrible word. Yeah, Gummy actually mentioned a recommendation. Gummy on Twitch says, don't use the game keyword while building a game. Limited to 2 players, open the more. It's going to be limited to 2 players. So 2 players per game, and maybe that's like a good, is a room maybe a good word for that? Yeah, lobby, room, match. So I think there's lobbies to find games, and so a game would then be maybe like a match. That's a good word. Match. So a match has 2 users. Yeah, Ahmad, I actually have a video about how my VS Code setup. It is the Capuchin Frappe theme, and the icons are Capuchin Frappe as well. I'm probably butchering how you say that. So match has 2 users. There's a start time per match. There's multiple turns. There's obviously like a winner per each match. The turns have a turn time. They have a user, and event is probably a bad name for this, but my thought is a turn has an action. That's a good word. A turn has an action. So in the sense that each turn is going to hold the what happened in that turn. And so a match has a lot of actions based off of turns. And I don't know if this would be like a good like polymorphic relationship. I'm open to ideas from you, Gummy, because I think you're the most experienced, and anyone who has an idea. But my thought is, should a match have actions, or should a match just have turns that have actions? My thought is a match has a bunch of actions, so there are actions related to the match, but they're only related through turns, because I probably wouldn't need to say, okay, this match has all these actions. Make the action events on the aggregate. Okay, that probably makes sense. Yeah, so the turns have a bunch of actions, and a match has a bunch of actions that are related through turns. And then, so a match has a winner, start time, 2 users, turns. Each turn has its own turn time. It's associated with the user. It has an action. In this case, the action is what happened during the turn. A match has characters. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but it has, yeah, characters. Models. Your match is your... Gummy says your match is your aggregate, and each turn is an event on that aggregate modifying the match state. Match is your aggregate, and each turn is an event on that aggregate. Okay, yeah. So there's turns. Match is the aggregate, and each turn is also an event on aggregate. Don't think in eloquent models when doing event sourcing. See, that's the stuff I probably need to learn. So like in verbs, I'm guessing this is what I'm going to learn a lot through this. Is that there's events, and okay. Instead of knowing just the current state of your app, every change event that leads to the current state is stored. Okay, yeah, so that's why I'm missing how it's thinking, because I'm not necessarily storing all of these turns in their own database model. That's why event sourcing happens. So a match would be a match would probably be an eloquent model, in the sense that we need a match to start all of this, but the turns would be the event sourcing piece, where every action has a turn, that kind of thing. Okay, I think I get it. Are you going to use Livewire? Yes, I am. So Livewire, Alpine, that is the goal. So I'm going to use Livewire for a lot of like the live actions, events, and stuff like that within Laravel Reverb. And then we'll do a lot of hopefully the ability is for me to understand C combating jargon. Okay, aggregates. There we go. State and verbs. There we go. Okay, now I'm on the same page as you got me. I have not read any of this verbs documentation. I've never heard about event sourcing or learned about event sourcing until now. So we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it live. So aggregates. So in this case, the state would be our match. State in verbs would be our match, and then aggregates are states. You have a projector. Many event sourcing systems will have dedicated projectors that listen for events and project data in a convenient shape for your views. They're sometimes called projections or maybe view models. Then you have reactors. Okay, I think I get it. So states and verbs are simple PHP objects containing data. Stairs. So the entire grouping of stairs is the state. In this case, our match is the state or the aggregate. And the database models reflect where we are now that we've traversed the stairs. Yeah, so the match is the state within verbs or aggregate. And then the events, I'm assuming, source of your data changes. So yeah, the events kind of fit into the state. So events would be our actions. Yeah, events on aggregate. Events on state in verbs. There we go. It's making more sense in my head. We're creating a new match. That's its own separate state related to each two users within our models. And a match has a start time, has a winner. There's turns, which are events in verbs. We can have a turn time. And so each turn has its own turn duration. So probably like max of 60 seconds. Each turn has its own user associated to the turn and an action. And so actions are related through turns to the match. So a match has multiple events of actions through turns. Okay. I think it is making more and more sense. See if I missed anything here. Did I miss anything important? No. not yet. Again, this is me just brainstorming with you, the viewer, along with me of like, how would this work? Because in my head, it's going to be really difficult, but it's also going to be really fun. Yep, Capuchin theme, frappe, and yeah. Great idea to be chess oriented. Yeah. Okay, so what's the first thing that we can do? The first thing that we can do is, let me set up. I'm probably not going to get to figure out what verbs is, but let me like install this so that way like we're ready to go. We're going to install verbs. We're going to publish. We're just going to, I always like to get things set up so that when I actually do need it, I know that, okay, things are like in a good spot. So we're going to publish the migrations, migrate so that we have verb events, snapshot, state events table, and now we can generate a new event. And so the event would be our actions, right? Because our state, utilizing states. States and verbs are PHP objects. So create a new state, customer state. So state would be a match. Okay. That's making sense. Let's do reverb as well, because I know I'm just going to use it. So again, I always like to just install things that I'm going to be using. Just so I can have things like out the gate. So the first thing I want to do is create new rooms for users. So two users can join a room, in this case the match, and maybe we'll create this is probably the wrong way to start breaking it down. But the first thing I want to do is make the ability to have a countdown timer for a match. So a match has And maybe we'll do like turns. And I'll think of this in models first, and then maybe I can push it to like event sourcing and stuff like that later. But I think a good starting point would be no more than 2 people can join a match. Once 2 people have joined a match, again, this is super basic level. Once 2 people have joined a match, let me write it down. Oops. So what's the first start? First start. Let's create the ability to have matches. So once 2 people have joined a match, the turn timer starts. And I only want turn timer. So basically just 1 turn timer just to start off with. 60 seconds. There we go. So that'd be a good start to say there are now matches, and now we can have that place to store all of these events. So let's go ahead and start the Reverb server. Nope. It's because it's already started. It's probably because my Laravel herd setup. Let's see here. Yeah, I can just do this instead. env. There we go. All right, so we have strategico.test. Here, the ability to be able to join a room, we would need to see how many people are in that room so that you can only join a room, a match. So a room starts a match. We'll keep them together. So a room has a match. Let's show all the matches available here and how many people are in that match. So just to start it off, why don't we say PHP artisan make model, and we'll just call this a match, and we'll create a migration for it in a factory. Name match is reserved. Wow, I did not know that. That makes sense. So a room it is. What's another word for match? Let's see. Anyone have any ideas here? You also need 1 shared timer for all players. It's a good idea. You might want to manage the match time on the back end. Lazy Dolly, thank you so much for joining. Cool hat, by the way. Yeah, do you like my indoors hipster hat? You might want to manage the match time on the back end to prevent front end refresh and reset timer. Okay, yeah, 1 shared timer for all players. That makes sense. Yeah, so like a turnaround timer. So not only does each turn. And so maybe that's like a good way of saying it, like a turn has a timer, but that's technically associated with the match. The match timer just resets on every turn. So maybe that's a good start. So we have a 60-second timer and can pass turns. Like that's a good, I think, first step that maybe in the next hour, I think we might be able to get there, depending on my ability to code live. Sometimes that's really good. Sometimes it's not that good. So if we have rooms, and maybe we'll call this a room now instead of a match. Room. A bunch of different rooms. Once 2 people have joined, the first timer starts. So randomly selected. 1 player randomly selected. Always 60 seconds on the back end, and they can pass turns. I like it. PHP artisan make model. We'll call it a room. Okay, let's create our rooms table. And again, this is probably the backwards way to do it if you're doing event sourcing. but I'll do it this way first, and then then I'll figure out event sourcing later. Famous last words. So a room, it has an ID. That's pretty much all I mean, we're going to add a bunch of stuff later to this because and maybe the ooh, this seems neat. Thanks, Will. Nice to see you. Timer might wait until 2 players are there. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, 2 players. The game, I know game is probably a bad word for it. So like, what's another word for game? Contest, meet, event. Event. That's a terrible word because if I'm like doing event sourcing, this is tough for names. I feel like that's probably the toughest part because I like a room holds people, but do I want the room actually being like the match, like a game match? And maybe like that's a so I'll take advice on specific wording. I can tell you that switching from model to event sourcing is pretty tough as you haven't planned your app as event sourced. Okay. That's the sentence that makes Daniel and John all the dollars. Yeah, there we go. We'll just like teach them. Battle. That Nick says battle. That's a challenge. Battle challenge. That's probably just call it game. I feel like I'm gonna be rewriting so much of this if match is I learned that match is a PHP reserved word, so I can't necessarily call it. Room being a lobby is just a state of the room. It's a good idea too. Battle, game match, fight. The app I'm using for taking notes is reflect.app, I believe. You have the pre, running, and post state, but all in the same room. That's probably true. That does make sense. So it's still a room. Once a room has 2 players, the match has started. The room is commenced. The room is in action state. Turn timer starts. Yeah, so I guess it could just be a room. So we have an ID, and yeah, let's just do that for now. We'll just get a bunch of rooms on the page. So we'll just say we'll create a new Livewire Volt class. We'll say that this is like the room lobby. Again, we can refactor a lot of this. Here, I just want to get all of the rooms in one place. So if we have the room, we'll also just say state. This is where event sourcing comes in. I know it. I know this is where event sourcing comes in, and I'm just gonna have to figure out how this works. Okay, why don't we do that instead? We probably won't get where I want to be, but we'll learn about event sourcing together. Okay, so our state is our room, which accumulates and holds every step. Because, and maybe it's not bad. Maybe it's not bad to have the room have like 2 states, because we need to know has the match started or has it finished? And maybe that can just be a Boolean in the room of 2 players join, the match has started. Once the game's finished, like is game finished? generating a state. So example state, let's see. Loading a state, card state load. Using states in routes. States implement, okay. Let's see the board game example. So you have a game state. Who's the current active player? Okay, and then you have a player state. For Monopoly. So game. When game started. And now we can set game start as true. Okay, so this makes sense of why room is probably going to be a state. In the sense that a room is a game. Room state, game state. And maybe that's like the way of saying it. So it's not necessarily a room, it's just a game state. And maybe a room has a game state. That might be a good way of doing it too. Like a room has a game state. Hello, sorry for bothering you. Okay. I don't know how to, where my, there we go. I don't know why it doesn't like let me, moderate this. I don't know how to do moderation in Twitch chat. Two states probably will not work. Turn games probably have more than just game started and game ended. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense then of why I would need this to be event sourced and why I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and figure out what event sourcing is. Your bank account is a state and each transaction is an event, but you don't start a new bank account only because you switch your address or your employer. That makes sense. I also don't know how to do that as well. I'm sorry. I'll probably have to figure that out. Let's see. Chat settings. I don't know why it doesn't. Users in chat. How it does. Oh well. I still need to learn all the stuff for everything. Each room battle could start and end in one unique state. Lazy Dolly says. Big boy pants go on and go event sourcing. I probably just need to do it. Players gets experience or stats. Yep. So each player is going to have their own unique state within the game. Enable show mod icons. There we go. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Let's just do this then. So if we create a new state, PHP artisan verbs game state. And the game state is game state tied to a room or tied to a model? Or is it just completely separate? Like, is event sourcing tied to models? Or is it just all in memory? Ability for your events to be replayed. Yeah, that's... I can see how event sourcing, especially for games, is incredibly is necessary. Because we have our state, and we'll generate in a fresh app states directory. Okay. So if we had all of this state, so game state, so like imagine just everything that this has here. And are these things use thunk verb? Okay, so like, is this stuff models? Like in the Monopoly example. I would imagine these would just be models then. Like a game state has a room and a board. All of that. What'd I miss? I would think you need a queue. Maybe event sources use this. Player press start button. There were fire event with matchmaking with opponent player randomly. Okay, yeah. No model directly in the state. Okay, so like state. I don't use models at all. Then that's what's confusing me. I've never. Like I get that this would be incredibly difficult to build out within models, but in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, like how do I list or how do I show all of the available rooms within? Like how do I loop through them? Player user ID in the state. The results of the model. So yeah, I would probably have a list of rooms, but each room has its own game state. So similar to how like each user is in the as soon as I'm used to it, I want something else. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm gonna start with the basic room lobby where I'm just using models and I won't even worry about state here. So I'm not going to try to do that. I'm just going to say that we'll list out the room and then just have players be able to join. So we'll say, again, this is probably the bad way of doing it, but we'll say we'll say that a room has like a room limit. So first we'll just get in our room factor, we'll just create a bunch of them. So we'll say that the room has I'll just have a name for it right now. That way I can just generate some in the seeders. So I just want to have a bunch of rooms created just to list them. Oops. So in the room lobby, I just want to, for now, just get them listed. And then we do need to put this in the dashboard. Okay. So the idea is each room can have its own 2 players. And if I was to take a look at the event sourcing piece again, and maybe that's what it meant by then the where was it? In events or in states, using states and routes, because this is what you would want to do. You would need to pass. Okay, yeah, you need to pass the state into the route to get the state for the game. And so that's probably what we need to do in the dashboard, is get all of the game states. So yeah, I guess rooms with the toddler refusing to sleep. What did I miss? Models are easy with Laravel, but I don't know how to yeah, I'm guessing by the end of this I'm going to be a full-blown event sourcing shill, but we'll see. You have to get used to event source, but as soon as you do, you don't want something else. I don't think I actually have Discord installed on this laptop right now. But yeah, I'll take you up on that next stream for sure. Let's do that. Maybe I can read a little bit more just to make sure I understand it. I think you need a queue. Maybe event source uses this. Hello, Aziz. Nice to see you. And I think that's it. It's starting to make more sense of why event sourcing needs to happen within a game, because you would need the game state. And as a game state, that's where I'm confused of, like, for this state, how do I have multiple game states? I know that, let's see if there's a list of them. State cache. Because I know that each game state would have its own, kind of like what we see here in this board game. Each game state has its own set of players, player IDs. So how do I make sure a game state is unique in that sense, though? That's where I'm a little bit confused about. Like, so do I still have to have rooms, and each room has its own game state? And how do I kind of connect the two? State is part of your events. Models are mostly for your application UI. It should always be possible to delete all the models that are created and updated via events and rebuild them all by replaying your events. Our event lifecycle is built to emphasize this. Before we even fire an event, we can check you are authorized to do so. Okay, so this makes me think that the room model is still important because we need unique rooms that hold a game state. So maybe I can keep doing this within the room model, and then I can put the game state in the room. So let's just do this. Oops. That way I can set that up. For the create rooms table, I don't know if I want a string of name instead. Maybe I just want like because a room will hold a game state. And then how do we get those pieces put together? Room would hold let's just for now have a boolean of not as private, but like has started or not. That way we can check how many players are in a room first before, because the game state's going to hold all of that information, but a room, and I know this is probably going to be put in the game state eventually. We'll migrate fresh just to do that. Because we have a has started default false. I just want to switch has started to true when two users are in that room. And then the game state can hold all of that. And so we probably need an event. Maybe this is like an interesting part within, because like there's the events within verbs, within event sourcing, but then there's also like events within reverb, which, like if we're broadcasting, we have these specific events that we need to create. In this case, I just want to say, like, we probably just need a presence channel. I basically just need to say when two users in the room, we're just going to switch it to has started. Data returned by the authorization callback will be available for the presence channel event listeners. Maybe not even a presence channel, because we can, when a user clicks into a room, we could even like fire off the event, like there's someone else here. Like joined room. And in our room factory, just so we have Oh. Okay. So each room probably has its own does Livewire work? But the room only has a projection of the game start state. But the room only has a projection of the game state. Like, room start with events, then states, and only after states the models. Okay, interesting. I'm doing it backwards in a lot of ways, it seems like. Does Livewire work with stateful? How do we deal with state here? I'm used to it with Laravel API and Vue.js for my state. Anyone guide me? Yeah, Livewire is stateful by default. You're sending the state back and forth via AJAX calls is basically what Livewire does. I doubt we want every event to be stored in the DB. What about the DB calls versus performance? It's round based, so nothing to worry about. It's not real time game with hundreds of events per second, only one every few seconds. Yeah, that's the key part. So that's helpful in this specific instance, is we don't necessarily have to worry about, you know, player location, everything like that. Yeah, I think everything's going to be saved in state using event sourcing. And we're going to be using Reverb to kind of have the timers. Timers is going to be the biggest thing to, and kind of like player actions and everything like that. We can use session for this. Probably. That'd be a good idea. You could put an ID on the game state. Okay. So the game... So I don't necessarily need a room then. I could probably have a game state and can kind of loop through a bunch of different game states that are available. So someone was like, hey, I want to create a game. They create their own game state, which has its own ID. Daniel Colburn. Yeah, that's who I really need. I know Josh also mentioned showing me all about event sourcing as well. Hopefully you get some good sleep. You don't want to miss. I don't think there's going to be too much to miss. I only have maybe like 10 or 15 more minutes before I have to call it for today. But I think I am good on like the next steps of one, what I need to learn about event sourcing, but then two, of what is going to have to take place with this. Yeah, I know I probably need to do this. I do not do Faker extension as much as I should. I don't have it. But yeah, I do need to get Daniel on. Tell me, just show me how to do this. Show me what I'm missing. But because I think that's the biggest thing that I'm thinking through right now. Because I know that a game state is going to have to be in a state. But how will how do you create new, how do you have a user create a new state? Because I'm thinking in the form of models. And so think through me here on this. Because I'm thinking in the form of models in the sense that I have, whenever I'm creating something, I have a new model that I generated. And a user can now create a new instance of that model because they're creating a new record in the database. In my mind, that room would then hold its own game state. But if I'm reading everything, if I am reading everything here correctly, then this looks like I probably need to have not models at all. Let's take a look at this one again. Everything is purely in event state. In a real-world application, you would need to implement a way for users to interact with the state, either through additional HTTP requests or something like Livewire. Okay. Yeah, no controllers or Livewire components. Everything is purely in event state. The current status of the game with information like who is the current active player, what's the current... Yeah, okay, I get that. Let's take a look. Let's see. Do they have like here? This is what I'm gonna need then. I am going to take this examples. I'm going to grab Monopoly. Let's see if I can set this up. Oops. So we have Monopoly, views. They're signing in. Okay. Components. Okay, so yeah, there is no models. You have the game ID. So how does that get set? Yeah, so there's no models. It's just all of so game. Okay, very interesting. Is this just its own? Yeah, these are just its own classes. Okay. Game controller, where it shows the index. See, it's not even like passing any. And then we can start events. Redirecting to the games after login. I think this is just all the actual state of the game. Because then in states, you have game state. Okay, yeah. So these are just all classes like these, like the bank board and phase. Those aren't models. Okay. It's just all, there's no models. Very interesting. I don't know if I'm smart enough to understand all this. So then in routes, so then we have games. We're passing in the game index. This is where I'm getting lost at, like how you can have multiple games, because in the games index, game ID, is the Monopoly layout. Like, where is the game passed into? Maybe someone else. A user isn't a child of game, so a user can be eloquent only. Okay, so the user is probably the only model that I'll have. We feel quite dumb when we don't understand. Exactly. That's why I love live streaming this. I love like showing one that it takes me a while to understand something. So when you watch like a video of me talking about something, usually I have spent double that time first making sure I understand it properly. And this is going to be turned into a great video in the long run of like what the frick event sourcing is. I'll get Daniel Colborn on. Daniel, if you're watching, I need you. You can mix models with event sourcing. So users can be models. It sounds like users is probably game over, no models. It sounds like users is probably the only piece that I need as a model then. I don't need a room because those are just going to be like in this Monopoly example, it's just going to be game states. So there's new games, and I can trash all of my notes then, in the sense that these can be like game state, match state. I like match better than game. So match state, and turns are still gonna be events. So like and if I'm following what the Monopoly setup is for states, the player state would be then the turn, and so maybe it would be, except this player state is more of like the because this is for Monopoly, like how much money you have, but that might be something to think about, because in a player state, instead of turns, it might be like a player state has turns. So match state has turns, and then I would have a separate state. That's what it is, of a player state, where it has because these turns and player state are probably going to talk to each other, in the sense that a player state has its own characters, or maybe we'll just say champions. That's a bad word for it. Or like characters. What's a good word for that? Like models, pieces. Yeah, we'll just say. So a player state has like, what is the state of the pieces? And there probably is also like a pieces state too, of like, what is their like hit points, that kind of stuff. But I would imagine that could just live in the player state, because then you know how many pieces they have, what are the hit points for each piece. So pieces, separate state. Player state has action state, or match state also has how many turns have passed. I guess that would be like the event history. And then player state would also have, as well as pieces, that might even be their separate state of, I don't know about player state then. It would just be pieces, and maybe that's its own state. So like player state has its own pieces that have their own state. So that part I'm still thinking through. Game state, which has its own players' IDs. I'm still missing that piece, because we have the controllers, game controller, we have the index, but it's not passing any games into it. Where is this game ID coming from? And how is it being passed? I know this is a work in progress, so maybe like it doesn't exist yet. Events, setup, game started. Okay, yeah, so here's where the game ID is. And maybe so that just like it has its own event that applies to state. That's really interesting. Am I gonna love event sourcing? I think that is the question of the day. Why would you? Here's like a legitimate question for those. Like with Among Us, you have to know the 6-digit game. Oh, okay. They have to probably manually enter it. That makes more sense. But there probably is some way to like query for all of the game states, I would imagine. You could say, hey, give me all the game states that have not yet started, and show them in some way, shape, or form. How come you're starting with Monopoly and not something similar to? I'm not even starting with Monopoly. I'm doing it more advanced than this. But the premise is like, I love learning by figuring out hard things. And so we're going to figure out hard things together. And so I'm building a chess, basically like an action chess game. So turn-based strategy with event sourcing. I've never learned event sourcing before. So this is going to take a little while. This is only hour and 10 minute one. The first hour and 10 minutes. And we have some notes. But that's a good thing, because I think I've learned that there is no models in event sourcing. You would still have models to anything you want to display in the UI, but they are built around what you want to read, not what you have to write, as far as I know, if that makes sense. That makes sense. So you're not, in this sense, the only thing we would probably need in the UI, if I can show and list the game states in the lobby. Let's say there's an entire lobby, and you can click on open and available games. So let me put this in words right here. How to start a game. So users can log in or create an account. In the dashboard, they can view a list of available and open games, or they can start a new one. Once 2 people have joined a room, the game begins. So like I imagine a grid of different lobbies in this case. So like there's one big lobby of multiple different waiting or games to be started. And so in that whole scenario, there is probably no models if I can show a list of game states, which I imagine I should be able to do that. If I can join a game state by an ID, I could probably view all game states by ID, would be my guess. And then once the game begins, it becomes unavailable in the main lobby. But there could be models, for example, outside of the users, because I would imagine a user could be a model, because I would need to display like information about their profile, that kind of stuff outside of games. And maybe even like, things like experience level, that kind of stuff. Like, so a user might have things like experience level, their profile, maybe like stats on games, like all that stuff would technically still be stored in the model, or probably best to be stored in the model, because it's not necessarily part of the game state or player state, which exists within a game or a match. But there could be like a chat room, for example, in the main lobby. And that would be its own model. Like you wouldn't want that in state. Only from, event source models are read only. Okay. Event source model. So I could have a list of game states though. Like if I had a list of match states in this sense, views. Is it the navigation? So views, games, index. Join an existing game. Start a new game. Okay, so they are asking for the game ID. But then, yeah, I don't know why I'm being kind of dumb in that sense, because if they're asking for a game ID in order to start a game, in this sense, the components, oops, Monopoly, source, we'll do the controllers, source, controllers, game controller. When you're starting a game, to show the game, you're grabbing the game state, and in this case, we could probably, there's probably a way to load game state for all games, or at least have a list of all games. So that is the one piece I have a question for, and I'll ask Daniel or whoever. What's the best way to show a list of all games on one screen? All game states. Based off of, I just want all game states that the game has not started. And since that is loaded in the state, like, is there a way to query events in that sense, or event states? Let's see, is there a way to query states? Loading a state. State is loaded once, then kept in memory even as you apply events. And maybe that's what you can't necessarily load a bunch of different states. State collections. Find it helpful real time to pair your states to your models. States are there to manage event data and memory, which frees up your models to better serve your front-facing UI needs. Okay, there we go. This makes sense. There we go. So once you convert to unique IDs, you can use your state instance's ID to correspond directly to a model instance. Probably need another state. Okay, so I think I have the answer. A room has a match state, and this state ID the match state would be linked to the room ID. So that's how I leap through a bunch of like rooms. Now I don't know how I can query give me all the rooms with the state of like not started, because it sounds like here's my next steps. It sounds like rooms are models but linked to match state, which we can do here. So the question would be how to query models based off of state, or should state control the model by like modifying the has game started column? Does that make sense? My question is, does stuff like this just exist in state? Which I'm guessing not, because then there's no way of like showing has it ended, has it started, that kind of thing. I should probably have this in the model, but have the state control the model, because this is what I need to show. And if I'm basing off of what this, I use my UI or models to serve your front-facing UI needs. I need the rooms to show based off of if they've started or not, or are available, whatever wording I want to say. So that's the biggest question. And the next question would be, the user has all their stats, so that should be good. Do I need, and a room probably has the reverb ID event. Okay, I think those are the biggest next steps. Like rooms are models linked to match state. I'm probably gonna have to start wrapping it up. A shorter stream today. but I liked jumping back into it. It's been a while since I've streamed, and now I got like solid next steps. So again, this was just kind of like planning phase. We didn't get that far. That's okay. I've left you a Twitter DM. Okay, I appreciate it. A match state has a room. Okay, the room can be deleted and reprojected from the match state. Okay, so I don't need the model. That's gonna be my homework before next stream. I might be able to stream tomorrow to learn a little bit more. Cool concept. I planned on making a few games with Laravel myself. Verbs look like cool back. Yeah, that's anytime I'm making something, it's to learn something new. There's very rarely times I'm making something like, oh, like I've never learned how to do this, or I know exactly how to do all this. I don't know how to build a game at all. I've never built one, and I've never used event sourcing. So this is the way I'm going to do it. Let's see. Are you using some kind of filter in OBS? Looks pretty cool. Your camera lighting. Thank you. Yeah, I am. It's very. I'll have to make like a quick little video of how I do it. But yeah, all of the different like ways or like scenes are in OBS. So like stuff like this is all OBS. And I believe I have a what's it called? Let me pull it up. I have on my camera, I have like a mask to mask it to like the rounded corners, but then I also have a little bit of color correction. So I'm using a Panasonic Lumix G7 as my webcam, and then I have a LUT that is a free LUT for the Panasonic G7, and that's like set to maybe like 60%. So that gives like a little bit more of like that cinematic type look. But the good thing is I love having it all set up out of the box, so I don't do any kind of like color grading or editing when I'm making videos. I just record and then I add some music or whatever afterwards. After game's finished, add column, finish game. Okay, yeah, so that's the part that I'm gonna get some help in of like, because I know that I could probably like redo all of this once I get it done, but I want to make sure I'm understanding it properly. And that's the thing. It's like, it's good to just kind of like build and then reiterate when you learn more. But with this, I do like, it is a different mental model. And so I do want to make sure I understand, okay, what stuff am I storing in the model in the database? And what stuff is just event state, especially when it comes to games. And this Monopoly one is going to be one I take a closer look at. I'll go ahead and I'll throw this in the chat for people who are watching, because I think that's one that I'm going to do a little bit more digging off stream at, just to make sure I understand it completely, and maybe I'll try to get this like set up as well. But where does state actually live when there is multiple games? And it's basically trying to get it out of my head too, of the sense of there can be multiple games in a that these users, let's say there's 100 users on the app, there's 10 games that are ready to go who have one user each in them. Once a second user joins that game, the game starts, but we need the event history also of, okay, how many games has this person won? And that's going to be in like the user stats. So that's technically probably being saved to the model. So stats on games, maybe they have like, maybe the experience level is like an ELO kind of stuff. All of this is probably saved to the model. I understand that. The room/match piece is where I'm confused of which stuff am I going to save to the model, which stuff I'm going to keep in the match state. Yeah, I think that will be where I call it for today. Josh, love everybody. Could you make videos on Filament? I'm recently getting PHP, honestly never leaving, so would love to see such videos. Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, I am planning on doing like a more of like how to use filaments like forms and actions and stuff within like a Livewire app. So that's kind of like one of the next videos that I have kind of in the pipeline. One thing also to note is if you go to cir.re/suggest, that is where you will see a little bit more information on kind of like what people are voting on as the next video I should make. This is obviously a pretty popular one, but which kind of like these two linked together. I'm probably going to make one video with both of these. But the building a SaaS with Filament 3 is something that I'm contemplating or going to start planning as well. But yeah, hopefully I'll see most of you all tomorrow. I probably should be able to stream a little bit, and maybe we'll see how far I get off stream of just kind of like learning and trying to understand all this. But yeah, maybe we'll do some fun stuff once I get it all. But yeah, I think this was a good stream. Overall, I think I learned a lot. I thank you all for joining and for being here with me, learning event sourcing. I appreciate it. But yeah, hopefully you have a good rest of your day. I'll see some of you tomorrow, hopefully. Until then, have a good one.